Welcome to the Aiki Dojo Podcast. I am David Ito, Chief Instructor of the Aikido Center of Los Angeles, and with me is
Ken Watanabe.
And today we have a special guest, Mark Dufresne Sensei. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate this. Yeah, it's interesting because I started with Furuya Sensei back up in like 1976 or 77. And the other time before that, I studied with different teachers, and they had their own style and their own way. But when I came in, I had Uno Sensei who taught one way, which was the way that he was taught by Akira Tohei when he was in Japan. And then when I came to Furuya Sensei, it was so interesting because he would start doing technique, and the technique was Kanai Sensei. And I'm like, how can this guy, he's in California, and he's moving like Kanai Sensei. He moved more like Kanai Sensei, and his Aikido was like Kanai Sensei. His students didn't look as good as Furuya did. And Furuya, when he moved, it was like a shadow. It wasn't the Tenkan. It was like the wind just blowing. And when you followed him, Mizuki, like I did, you're following him and following his movement. And when you got to the place where you thought you were there with the movement, he's already moved to another place. And then he ends up, turns again, and you're in the air. And that's it. That's it. His techniques were so clean, so precise. When I was there, it was so precise. And I was the one, I happened to be the person that was able to take his ukemi. And there were other people who were there before me, but he would always throw me. And the people would just look. They didn't know what the heck I was doing. All of a sudden I was in the air and I'm taking break falls, or I'm being thrown and rolling across the mats, and then they would ask me, how do you do that? How do you do this ukemi? Show me how. And I would start showing them how, so that they would build up their ukemi. If you don't build up your ukemi, you as a nagi and your technique, it isn't going to grow either. You need to feel what's going on, I believe, with the ukemi, because you become together. You become like Siamese twins together, you and nage. And if that connection, this is the kind of connection I had with him when he would throw me. You could see that in those photographs that I gave you. They weren't fake. I couldn't stay up in the air that long for the picture to be taken. But you had to stay with him. And when he was throwing you, especially in that, and they were taking pictures of it, he wanted it perfect. And we would do it multiple times. And then they'd take the picture and he'd be happy. But the picture really showed. He was always in proper technique, proper position when he threw me. Sometimes you see in something that might be off a little bit. But he was like a pyramid, a solid base. Mm-hmm. The pyramid's like this, and it's kind of like the hakama in the bottom. And he was perfect that way. You couldn't hit him or move him, and he wouldn't move from the position, right? But if you moved him, or if you went up against him, he would go into another technique. He flowed with that. He didn't stay there and say, well, I got to do that. He would do the technique and he'd throw, or I'd be standing there and I'd move against him. He'd already begun into another technique or two techniques. He was able to, like that flip-flop, and continue his way. It was interesting because I'm thinking of Kanai Sensei and I'm watching him and I'm going like, they're the same. There's that similarity. I seen Kanai Sensei's Ushidesh, and they're good, and they show exactly the way Kanai would throw. But the key, the energy that Furuya had and that Kanai Sensei had was beyond belief. You could tell that the movement was being fed by the ki, by the energy of their body and the precision of their technique. And every little thing meant something. And the movement of the hands and the elbows were all connected to the center.
But, Furuya Sensei studied with Kanai Sensei 67 to 69, I think. Yeah. But when we studied under Furuya Sensei, he was real strict. And he was more like a sensei, like you don't really have that opportunity to hang out with him and ask him questions. Yeah. What was your time with him like?
He was strict, but apparently not as strict as he was with you guys. I don't know what
with
happened.
Me?
Really?
Yeah, I'm with you. The worst.
That's good. That means he cared.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, he cared. People, they don't really pay attention to you and they don't really care. And by not caring, they don't show them the correct way. So they're just kind of like, like hitting a gnat in the air. That's all you are. But when they come and they say, oh, do this, do that, you're not doing this right. That's because they care. But, if they don't say anything to you, I don't get caught up in that. But if they say something to you and they're telling you that this way, if you do this, it's going to be better. Your Aikido is going to be better. So, sometimes they would just look. Kanai Sensei would just look, and he'd walk around. And he would look, and sometimes he'd look at the people, and he'd give them like this kind of face, like, "What are you doing?" And then he'd just walk away. But then he would stop, and he would talk, and he would show the throw. And what would happen is, everyone would stop, and they'd all be on their knees, and there could be 25, 30. He had big classes, big rows and rows and rows of people, and everyone would stop, and they'd watch him and listen to what he said, and he would explain it. It was sometimes real hard to understand because his English, wasn't that good. And I think he didn't explain much because I think he probably felt bad of his ability to explain to the people. And sometimes he would have translators come in. But Furuya Sensei, when I met him and he would talk, he always sound so Japanese.
A lot of people say that about him, that he has that hallmark Japanese accent.
Yeah. And then I heard, oh, he's from Pasadena.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what?
Yeah. I thought he was from Japan. I think it was a Japanese citizen who was teaching Aikido in Los Angeles. Then when I heard he was in Pasadena, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wasn't from Pasadena. And I'm like, oh, I'm in Japan now. But no, he was Pasadena.
And then the two of you spent some personal time together. I think you told the stories about his family.
It's very interesting because he kind of took me under his wing. Mm-hmm. And he would bring me places like to restaurants and this and that, and introduced me to sushi. And I'm from the East Coast, and I'm from a huge fishing port. And I'm like, okay, well, we cook the fish. I'll boil the fish. And there's this raw fish, and he says, oh, this is good. This is good. Here, eat. And I'm like looking at it and bringing it to my mouth, and I'm like, and then I ate it, and man, I got so freaking addicted. Yeah, and he gave me that one with the quail egg and that sea urchin. Uni. And I'm like, ooh. Oh, this is good. This is the best. I said, really? He goes, yeah. I said, so do I take a bite? He goes, no, put it all in your mouth. And I put it in my mouth, and then the freaking egg exploded and everything. And I'm like going, whoa. And I was like, and then that was my favorite sushi from that point on. It was insane. Insane. But he did introduce me. It was a Christmas, and he says, come with me. You're gonna come to my parents' home. And I'm like, okay. So we went, and we go in, And there's the table, and everything's set up, and all the food, which I was in heaven when I saw the food. It was like in the New Year's when they make all the special stuff. My friend Joanne's mother would always invite Mark over. And she'd make this and feed me it, and it was like insane. But at Furuya's mother and father's house, it was the same way. And his grandmother, the table was a rectangle, and he and I sat on one side, and his mother sat on the other side, and his grandmother was like on one of the head points of the table. You know, she was, and then his father was on the other side. And she didn't say anything, really. She just sat there. She was a tiny little lady, you know. And they were very talkative and very friendly, and we talked about all different things, and they talked about Furuya. And
were they proud of him?
Oh yeah. Oh, he was like the golden child, and it may seem kind of weird, but you could feel this energy when they got together, the three of them. And sometimes Furuya Sensei would be porcupine-ish, you know, and the parents were just real smooth, and they just look, and he would say something, and they would look at him, and they knew exactly what he meant. And a lot of it was dealing with real traditional ways on how to set things up. Mm-hmm. Everything had to be immaculate. And in the New Year's, and you're putting up the altar there, and you have the mochi and the seaweed, and you have the orange, and it has the little leaf and all that stuff, and then you have the rice and the water and all these things and all the... And the mother would put him up, or the father would put stuff up, and he'd go up and he'd take it and he'd move it like a half of an inch or back.
That sounds about like
him. That sounds like him.
Yeah. I mean, his hakama, when it came out and he put it on, it looked like it was brand new. The creases were, you know, like that. He was really into things that had to be placed back the way they were, you know. And anyway, the one in the New Year, he comes in and he has all the stuff and he's putting it down. And he has the orange with the little leaf hanging, because it's supposed to represent the orange in the space, in air, in nothing. And the leaf, it's just floating there. And the only way it could be that way is because the leaf. You know, that's the interpretation of it. He was telling me. And man, he says, here, and he gives it to me, and I'm holding it, and the freaking leaf fell off.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, and he saw me. He saw it, and I said, Sensei, and he said, man, his face, everything was just looking through me. But he never said anything, you know, not bad at all. But the whole thing has been ruined now, totally. And I said, we can tape it on. And that made him more, and I said, we could staple it on. And he was, and I'm like, oh, Mark, I said, you got to go to the grocery store down the street and check it out and see. So I ran down, and he goes, no, you're never gonna get it. Never mind. Blah, 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 blah. And I said, I'm gonna go. And I went there, and it was huge. It was like 5 feet by 5 feet square with all of these oranges, and they were piled. And I'm like looking, and I'm looking to look for a leaf, no leaf, and I'm moving them and moving them and moving them. I'm like, oh man, I gotta find one. Then all of a sudden I saw a leaf, and I was like, oh, and I got it out, and it was perfect. And I went to the cashier, and I said, I want to buy this orange, but I just want you to put the price in, not touch it, because it's really important, because my sensei said there has to be a leaf on it, and I don't want it to fall. And she kind of looked at me, and she goes, okay. She probably thought I'm like whacked out. And so I paid her, and I came down, and I walked back. I didn't want any wind to hit the leaf, and then I bring it to him, and there's no leaf. So I walked back gently. It was like 3 or 4 blocks. And I went in, and I went, oh. And he was like happy. His eyes got bright. And I said, yeah. So we got it, and he set it all up, and we were able to do the New Year's, and everything was in harmony. And thank God that the leaf stayed on during the time of practice and everything. I'd have to run back down again.
Because if that was our time, he would have just exploded in anger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
He was supposed to get out.
Yes.
It was very interesting, to see how different it was. He didn't explode on me at all. He was always compassionate, and he was always helpful, and he would always bring me places like even to Little Tokyo and explain all the stuff when we're walking through.
But he was always kind of teaching you then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything he did. Even when we were in a diner eating a burger and fries or something, he would talk, and I would ask about Aikido. When he talk about Aikido, and he talk about technique, but when he was doing it, he was aware of everyone around him. And sometimes, like, there'd be someone behind him, and he would be like uncomfortable and twitching.
Like looking behind himself.
Yeah. And he didn't, like I don't now. Is when we went to the restaurant the other night, I didn't sit on the outside where the people were behind me. I sat beside the wall, and that's the way that I was taught, and that's the way that he would do it, and that's the way that I do it. And you as a student having your teacher, you never did one step in front of theirs. You were always one step behind.
Because we learned it differently.
Yeah.
We learned that the students sit on the outside to turn and protect the teacher.
Yeah.
And that the person, the kabamochi, sits on the very end, on the teacher's side. And then the people that are facing the teacher sit to turn around and defend.
Yeah.
We were never taught to sit against the wall.
We would sit like this across each other. I'd be on one side of the table, and he'd be on the other side of the table. And he would sit there, and he would just talk about this and talk about that. And I would listen, because my feeling was, if he's saying something, there's a reason why he's saying it.
Did he seem credible and well read?
Oh yeah, totally well read in the history, in his ability of understanding the Japanese language and the meaning of it. People can understand the language, or the Japanese language, or they can read Aikido, but they don't understand the essence of what that calligraphy is. And that calligraphy is Aikido, but it's a meaning, it's a certain meaning. And people go, oh, Aikido, yeah, okay, Aikido. But it's pictographs. It's pictographs that the Chinese made. And if you look at it, and Furuya explained it that way. He explained it that and what it is, and what it's dealing with carpentry, and the joining of the joints, the joining of the wood that's put together. It's not with nails, it's not with metal, it's with, the little wooden pegs, and it's dovetailing, because he said this is because when a building like a temple is built like that, it does this, it sways with the earthquakes. Mm-hmm. But with the metal in the nails, it doesn't flow. There's no key. There's no fluidity. The building will break.
It's too stiff.
Too stiff. Yeah, and he was talking about that's what I is. I is the coming together and to fluidly move throughout. And to me, I think that makes a lot of sense. Instead of a lot of time, the people go, I, oh, that means love. And I go in the dictionary, and I'm looking up love, and I'm going like, that's not the same character.
Yeah.
So why change the meaning of the character? Because that's the essence of what I is for Aikido, is that kind of blending together and moving together. Love is love, and love should be appreciated. But this particular character, a pictograph, is what it is, and you can't change it. You can't change it. And the key, everyone, oh, that key, that's the energy, that's this, that's the spirit, that's blah, 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 da, 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 da. And I believe that, too. I believed that that's what it was. And then he started explaining it. And I'm like, because it goes like that. And then there's that line, and then this line comes like that. And then it goes like this. And then it's these 4 little things in that cross area. And he says, you know what this is? And I said, yeah, that's key. That's the meaning key, And he goes, yeah. But he says, you know what it is? You know what the picture is? The pictograph is. And I'm from freaking New England. I know cod and stuff like that. Yeah. I'm like, no, I don't know what. I said, no, I don't. And I said, key, that's all I know. And he says, no. He says, you see this line here, this line, and this line? He said, this is vapor. This is from water steaming, and this is the lid. And he said, this here is the pot. And he said, you see this? That's inside the pot. And those little things are rice. And that's the life. That's the key. It's in China, when you write it, that's the key of their existence, is rice. And it's not on a spiritual level, but it makes sense. You have to eat, and you have rice, and that's what you usually eat. So this is that energy, that spirit, that thing. And I was like, so anyway, the key one, you start with that dot, and you have this line that goes like that and comes up. And he said, you see what this is? He said, this is a person traveling on a path that's the essence of the teaching and everything. And then he said these lines. I don't remember if he mentioned much about that. And then this, and then the 2 in the middle. And he explained everything of what the calligraphy is, which I think for me it was really good because it made a deeper understanding of what that is. It wasn't just black ink, that, because I look at the calligraphy here, and I'm like, oh my freaking word! And I do calligraphy. Mine sucks. Yeah.
But that's which kind of incredible, is that the time that you're talking about Furuya Sensei is talking to you, he is like in his mid-20s.
Yeah, he's young.
I didn't even ask. I never knew how old he was.
In 74.
I didn't ask.
He was, because in 78, he would have been 30.
In 78 and 79, I went to L.A., and that's when I met him.
Yeah, so he would have been 27, 28 years old.
Yeah.
But I mean,
like that.
I'm talking about, he's talking about these very deep ideas.
Yeah.
And then he's not even 30 years old.
And he's talking to a Hakujin, who, or the other one that they call Gaijin, barbarian, or whatever you call him, barbarian, whatever. And I'm like, and he was so good at explaining to it to someone who didn't know anything. All that I knew was, "Hi, sensei. Hi, ohayo gozaimasu, sensei." Oh, the simplest. My whole feeling was, what I wanted to learn in Japanese was how to be correct and be thankful and be humble before the teacher, and that was my main thing. And when I was with any teacher, I was always, when they'd show me, I'd be down on my knees and I'd be bowing, thank you, domo arigato, sensei, domo arigato. And they would just turn around and walk away, of course. But that to me was important. If you're going to practice something, you have to understand that other stuff, that part of etiquette. Mm-hmm. Etiquette. And like you said, about how come sensei is folding his akama and da-da-da-da-da, right? And I sat there and I was like, oh, good, because you said that. Because I had broken my right ankle in Amherst in Aikido because the mats were so soft. They were putting mats on top of each other in the wrestling room. And I stepped forward and my top of my leg continued and it snapped 3 bones. And I fell down, right? And my friend said, "Oh, no, you're okay. You're okay. You didn't break your foot." I said, "I broke my freaking ankle." And he goes, "No." And I said like this. I picked it up and it hung like a piece of dead meat. And after everything healed, it was perfect. But when I had my cast, Kanai Sensei came to Amherst and was doing a seminar. And I always folded people's akamas like you guys say. I folded them. And I went to Kanai Sensei with my cast on. And I said, Sensei, can I fold your hakama? And he looked at me and he goes, "You think it's okay? You can do?" I go, yeah. So I took it and I put it down and I folded the whole thing and everything and held it and gave it to him. I don't give things like this. I give things like this. You know, I always lower my head. And I gave it to him. And he was smiled. He appreciated it. And he always remembered me because of my broken ankle.
That's cool.
Other than that, my technique, oh, you got the broken ankle. He said, "You broke your ankle." He goes, "Ski?" And I said, "Yes, Sensei. I was punching ski." And he looked and he went, "Ski." But that, and I can understand why Furuya Sensei felt the closeness to Kanai Sensei. They had kind of the same, what do you call, kokuru, mindset or something at the mind. They had very similar like that. And the other teachers, you know, that I studied with, and you know, and they were all the Shihans and all the people that knew, that lived on the East Coast, and they weren't like the two of them. You know, there was always something else, some kind of friction or something.
Their families were from the same town.
That's right, from the same part of Japan,
From the-
Yamanashi.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were friends when they were back home?
No.
But they're possibly related distantly.
Yeah. Kanai Sensei and
Yeah, they're from the same
Furuya
hometown in Yamanashi.
Really? I wouldn't be surprised then. That's probably one reason why they started clicking. Like I clicked with the two teachers from Hawaii. And I'd never been to Hawaii. I'd never seen them before. But there was something else that was coming out of them and something else that they were saying that attracted me to listen wherever I was in the car, to listen what they were saying. And I was going, this is it. And I turned and I would say, this is what you're saying is what Aikido is. That's the essence of it. And that's what people need to know. You know, just this.
This Kokyu?
And this movement. All the teachers did that. Tamura did it. Kanai Sensei did it. Everyone, and the connection back here when this happens. And there's space. And they went, no. And I tell the students now, you can't have any space. If there's an air pocket,
When you grab.
Yeah, you know, it's a suction like an octopus. Mm-hmm. It's this.
It's like your palm is stuck onto their wrist. There's no power, but there's just complete connection.
Yeah, with your hand like this, you feel the energy between the palm of this hand and the back of this hand. You know, they call it ki, they call it whatever they want. But I felt that a long time before I did Aikido. Mm-hmm. I was into that, or it just came, especially when I finally started sitting in meditation before I studied Aikido. And my family would look at me and go, "What are you doing?" And I'd say, "I'm sitting." They go, "Why are you sitting?" I said, "I don't know, but it feels really good." And they'd look at me and my brother would say, "Yeah, he's the eccentric one in the family." And I was like, yeah, I'm glad I'm eccentric and I'm not normal and boring like you and the rest. Of course, that went over well. But
What made you start Aikido?
I went to traditional art college to learn painting, and I painted my whole life and still do paint. And I went to this college, and I was there for I was supposed to be there for 4, but I went through 2, and they were more modernistic, and the colors and this boxes and this and that. And I wanted to paint people like they were people, and I wanted to paint buildings like they were buildings and stuff like that. I've painted the Grand Canyon and multiple Grand Canyon pictures of it. I have so many in my house. I'm like, these are all going to be thrown out because my family doesn't want them, you know? So I went to that school and I studied at that school, and then 2 years later I stopped. I said I'm not going to continue because I didn't want to do all the abstract and stuff like that. I wanted it to be more Renaissance or something, and I left. And my friend who I went to high school with, he came down. He came back from Amherst, and he goes, Mark, you're not doing anything. Why don't you come to Amherst? My teacher Uno, you need to come and see Aikido, right? And you need to come and practice with him, because I did practice in New Bedford. But he said that, and I said, okay. So I went to a seminar that he was doing, and Kanai Sensei was there, and Uno Sensei, and Akira Tohei, and I watched, and I'm like, whoa, this is like 1,000 steps higher than where I was. And I'm like, the movements and everything. I said, yeah. I said, I really need, and Uno Sensei I liked. He had such a warm heart and a warm feeling. You know, there was no animosity, no like I'm better than you. You know, his teaching at Amherst College of religion and philosophy there, he had an endowed chair that as long as he wanted to teach, the money was there to pay him.
Wow.
100 years, it didn't matter, you know. And Furuya Sensei gave me one of the, you know how they have the piece like you put in the package, that white with Furuya Sensei gave me one, and he asked me, please, I want you to give this to Uno Sensei. So I said, okay. So I did it, and I said, oh, I don't know if it was the Diamond Sutra or something, I said. And he looked, and he wrote me this whole letter. This is not the Diamond Sutra. This is the Hot Sutra. This is the sutra of the warriors, of the samurais, of martial artists. This is part of like Fudomayo. It's that consciousness and everything. And he wrote this beautiful letter, which I still have. I have it behind a picture of Buddha that he gave me, where Buddha is standing there and his head is turned back. And he says, this is Buddha. How come he's had his head back? And he goes, what do you think? And I'm like, I don't know, because all the statues you see, they're like this. They're sitting, they're doing this, they're doing that, they're doing their hand gestures, so you know what they're saying. And he said that he's looking like this because he's looking to make sure that he hasn't left anyone behind. And I thought, wow, I mean, that's part of Aikido. You don't leave any of your students behind. You make sure that they're all coming up and progressing and getting better. So anyway, he gave me that picture, and in the back is the letter in the envelope that it came in. And it's like, it did something inside of me that made me understand more what my obligation is not to myself, but to the other people around me, to the other people that I'm practicing with, you know. And Furuya gave it to me, and Furuya Sensei, he gave me this little round little thing. And he says, bring this to Kanai Sensei. Hi, yes, Sensei. Yes, I was going back home for a week or so. Yes, Sensei. And Furuya and Kanai Sensei was, an hour and a half north of where I am. Yes, Sensei. Doesn't matter if it was 5 hours away. I'd still, yes, Sensei, and go there. And I went there, and I went into Kanai Sensei's office, and I said, Sensei, Furuya Sensei wanted me to give you this. And he took it in his hand, and he looked, and he went, oh, this is oil for the sword. This oil is like the best of the best. You know, Furuya Sensei wouldn't give a half of anything. Mm-hmm. It was the best of the best, and it was little, and I'm like guarding it with my life. So I gave it, and he was like elated.
Was it choji oil?
I have no idea what
It was
It
was the oil for the swords.
for the swords.
For cleaning the sword.
Choji oil.
Choji oil, yeah. It must have been very high quality.
Hand
choji
pressed choji
yeah, it's
oil.
probably like made by a craftsman or something. That little bottle probably cost
That's
back then
exactly.
like $30 maybe.
That's what it was.
Yeah,
Because
expensive.
he never gave, something that was second or third grade. He always did the best. And
So, like Furuya Sensei influenced you to take up
a lot
other
of
Japanese arts,
things, a lot of things.
other Japanese
Yeah.
traditional arts.
Yeah,
Just
a lot of
because of
different
his,
things.
just because of
Yeah.
his, he knew so much about different things. You're like, oh, I gotta try that.
Yeah,
Whereas before, you didn't know what
none of it was.
none of it was, and
No.
not because of him.
I'm a white
You're like,
boy,
oh.
born in the East Coast. I didn't know any of that, but I always was interested, and even my family and friends were like, "What's your problem?"
Yeah, like why?
I didn't want to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Why do you want to do the Oriental stuff?
Yeah.
You know?
And one said, "Well, you're too much into that Japanese stuff."
Oh my God.
And I was like,
The black sheep of the family.
yeah. And it's like, can't you see this beauty even in just the way that they do calligraphy in a word? And in that, what is it, the grass style? Oh my God, I look at that and I'm like, oh, so beautiful. So beautiful. We just go, there you go.
I was wondering, like, what was it like to learn Aikido under Furuya Sensei back then?
Okay.
The Furuya Sensei that you knew, opposed to the Furuya Sensei that we knew. He seemed more open to share a lot of things, and like maybe like his personality was more friendly and outgoing. It seemed
Not as jaded.
not as jaded and not as what's world weary, like just
Battle weary.
battle weary.
That's what you
'cause-
perceived
yeah.
of him.
Well,
that there was, because I believe that's true.
We were not. We did not ask him questions.
We didn't ask him questions.
You didn't dare, because you asked some asinine question, and then he would go off on you in
Yeah.
front of everybody. And you're just like, God, I just wanted to know if ninjas were real.
Yeah. You want to get him mad? Ask about ninjutsu.
Oh my gosh.
Anything like that, and he would just like he would go off on
He
you.
would chew you up and spit
Yeah.
you out. 20 minutes later, you're like, I just was saying something dumb to make conversation
Yeah.
about Japanese culture.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we never asked him questions.
We never asked him. It seemed like he was more fresh faced and bushy tailed back then. Like just like it seemed like he was really enthusiastic.
Everything was a travesty of justice. If you said, Sensei, what's the address of the place we're going, or how do you get to the place we're going? You don't know. You didn't research it ahead of time. I should have had Watanabe drive me. I knew I should have had Watanabe drive me. And I was like, I know, but he was busy. That's why you asked me. And like, and then really,
Yeah, like you're supposed to know before you know, but which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
how you're supposed to be trained.
Yeah.
right?
You
and
understand?
yeah, like
but-
in a technical sense, like I don't think Sensei discussed technique with you as much, but he directly talked to me about technique, like out in the open, and he would say, ask me questions about technique, and I was very like sheepish, like, oh, I don't know, I guess yeah, that's what they're doing, because sometimes he would say like, oh, what do you think of this person's Aikido? And I'd say, oh, they're fine, they're a nice person,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
he would say, what do you really think?
Well, you guys.
And I would say like, oh, his foot, this is balance, etc. And then says, you go, you think you know everything? And I was like, you asked me this question, and I tried to acquiesce, and then you. So yeah, that's the whole thing. Is it seems as if.
Yeah, like he never discussed technique with me, But the thing is, I was constantly taking his ukemi for everything. Weapons, regular class, all. It was, at first it was scary.
Yeah.
But yeah, we weren't allowed to ask questions. I mean, it's not that we weren't allowed to ask questions. You better bring your well thought out question, or else he's going to chew you up.
Yeah, it would be like, he used to say, students are not supposed to ask the teacher a question too soon. You can only ask a question once you completely exhausted every avenue of learning the answer. And he says, often the student will learn the answer on their own.
True.
And Sensei said, if you learn the answer on your own, as opposed to just be giving it, you remember the answer. It's because you lived it. You toiled for this knowledge rather than just going on Google and what is Aikido? Oh, it gives you some like byline, but you don't really live it. You don't sweat it. You're not crying.
Yeah.
Not that I ever cried, but there's hardship.
Well, sometimes you cry, but you go into your own space because
I've never cried because of Aikido.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes you feel that point when it gets to that elevation. When you're doing Aikido and the teachers start teaching, you're up here as a teacher, and this is where the student is. The student can't come up to you. You have to come down to them to bring them to the next level. And then you're still up here. And still, they're starting to get what you're saying. They're starting to understand even one movement. And then you're there like this, and you bring them up a little bit more. And every little bit more might be a year. It might be 6 months. But you also have to keep feeding, that twig that's going to turn into, an orange tree or something.
You gotta feed the fire in the student, their desire to learn Aikido.
Yeah.
Do you think Furuya Sensei did that to you?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, did he explain the why and the how, or did you just demonstrate?
He demonstrated, but he explained. He would say, move like this, move your foot like this. When you move your foot, turn, and you practice what he said. I would practice what he said. And, it would be difficult at first, but then it was okay. Then I understood. He did one movement where he would doing something with the uke, and he would go around like this, and this I teach to my students because I enjoy watching how they're like totally confused, and the muscles in their leg go into spasms, and they fall because of the tension that I'm expecting them to do, which Furuya Sensei did. Is when you step back with the forward foot, there's a point. Say you tenkan, and then you're going back, and your back foot is landing to stabilize the front foot. When the foot starts to come down, you don't let it go down all the way. You keep your knee bent. And what it does is it causes the flexors to tighten up, to become like a rubber band. And at that point, when your foot is starting to come down, you fly off of that foot and you throw the person. And it's so quick. It's boom, boom. Like that.
That's for Tenkan Kokunage? Like the standard Tenkan Kokunage you're talking about?
It's in all techniques. When I teach them, the students that I have, their muscles all go into contraction and they can't get their arm and they go into cramps up and down there. And I said, no. I said, when you do it, you have to breathe. You can't hold your breath because the breath is what's feeding the oxygen, is what is feeding the blood. And the blood takes the oxygen and then floats around through the vein and it drops it off to the muscle, the tissue. And the tissue absorbs that oxygen to survive and move. If it doesn't, your muscle becomes necrotic. There's no oxygen and your muscle is dying. You know how people hold their breath. If you do that, your muscle gets no oxygen. And what happens is you fatigue quicker and your movement isn't smooth. So you have to understand kokyo. You have to understand the breathing and the motion as you're doing a technique. It has to be in harmony with the attack and with the throw. It can't be breathing in and out and when it shouldn't be doing. Your movement should be smooth with the breathing in, like you're gonna do tenshin and you come in, and then and it comes from a deeper part. When I breathe, I make my students breathe with me, and I do that breath, and they're all out of breath, and I'm still breathing out and out and out, and they're sitting there looking at me, and I continue to breathe out, and then I go, when I do that, and I go, oh. That's the way I learned from Uno Sensei. When you do that and you breathe out as you're doing that, and there's certain hand exercises that you learn to get your breathing going. People, you have to train your students to know how to breathe.
Did Furuya Sensei go over that kind of breathing technique with you?
He, didn't really go over the breathe in and breathe out. It was, he would say, as you're moving, breathe. And when you throw and you breathe out, that puts the power, your breath power, into the technique. And when you do it, it releases all this energy. And the throw is much more powerful.
Yeah, you're supposed to breathe out whenever you receive attack.
Yeah.
You're supposed to attack your opponent when they're breathing in, because then they won't be able to move.
Yeah, the breath has to go like this between you and uke. Yeah.
So you took lots of ukemi for Furuya Sensei.
Yeah.
It seems like.
Yeah.
What was it like to take ukemi for the younger Furuya Sensei?
More violent?
The younger,
more
stronger, more fit.
Yeah. Was it more violent, more smooth?
Like, was it harder? Like, were there hard edges to the technique?
I would never ever say it was violent. I never saw that, or I never felt that from him.
I mean, it was powerful, not violent.
It was powerful.
But supposedly in those 70s,
fluid.
He was violent.
I've heard stories about him, but he was physically, I think he might have been physically stronger when he was in his 20s rather than when I was taking his ukemi, because sometimes he would ask me to open up like pickle jars. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was like, I thought, his Sankyo and Nikkyo like just be able to open up anything, but he was asking me to open up pickle jars.
Yeah.
But when you got your Sankyo and Nikkyo, you're like, I'm not going to try to jerk my hand out of Sankyo or Nikkyo or when he had you in his grip, because you're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
When
he would do a Nikkyo, you couldn't get out of the Nikkyo. I couldn't, and that's why that one bone in my left hand is popped out because he did a Nikkyo, and it wasn't his fault. It was my fault, because as I went, it was a ski. He brought me around, and I started coming around. And by the time I started coming around, he already had my hand in a Nikkyo up on his shoulder, and he was holding it. And when I came around, my body weight created the intensity of the Nikkyo. That's what happened. And it went, and he looked, and he stopped, and he went, and he goes, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so." But my bone's out. It's still out. I never had it fixed. I didn't care. It's like a badge of courage.
A badge of honor.
But he would be where he had to be when Uki was coming out through that door. And at that point he came through that door, you were gone.
Like, his positioning and timing in relationship to your movement was very, very precise.
Yeah. It was like putting a puzzle together.
Yeah.
You go, okay.
Yeah, like you're a puzzle piece, and he put you where you were supposed to be. There's no searching around for it. He's just bam right there.
Yes. He would put you where he wanted you to be so he could do what he had to do, and you didn't really feel anything like you were being set up.
Okay. Yeah. So there was no, even back then, his technique was such that, like, you could some people, you could feel them like jostling you around and forcing you into a position.
Right.
But when you were taking his ukemi, like a lot of times I took his ukemi, you were just guided into this place. It's almost like you just went to this position.
Yeah. But
Regardless-
you are totally aware in your head where you're going.
Yes.
If you not, then if he does the technique,
Then you're
you're
toast.
broken. Yeah,
you're toast.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had to be completely,
Yeah.
as a uke, you had to be
Yeah.
completely aware of their position
Yeah.
just for your own safety.
Yeah. You're in the middle path and you're going to survive.
Yeah.
If you sway to this side or you sway to that side, it's not the middle path.
No.
You need to be here and you need to be alert and awake.
Yes.
Because if you become sleepy and sloppy, you can injure yourself and injure other people. And you don't want to do that. It's not hard to hurt someone.
No.
It's harder to heal someone,
Yes.
so you really need to think about what you're doing. When I was here and we worked with different people, and you said to practice with white belts, and I practiced with all the white belts from that point on. You can't take someone who's only been doing it for maybe even 6 months and put them in a nikyo.
No.
Because you can snap them like a little baby bird. It's that simple. And one of my students who's a big weightlifter, he'll grab you and he'll go, and that's it. But when he does it to me and he goes, "Ugh," I just go, boop, and throw him away. And he gets mad. He's like, doesn't get mad, but he's like, how do you do that?
He's like frustrated.
Yeah.
It's like magic.
I say, let go of this. When I grab, if you go like this, it's not good.
Grabbing with your hand.
But you feel this, and you're connecting.
It's a connection.
With the energy in the skin. And when this movement happens, it's a whole different feeling than when this movement, happens. There's this. And this kind of conflict on Nange, who's learning a technique, and Uke is learning a technique, there's no way to break that because you're going up against a wall, a stone wall.
So in other words, it's competition.
It is.
And Aikido is not supposed to have competition.
No, it's competition in a different kind of competition.
Right, not gold medals.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
gold medal. Maybe that's what they meant by Aikido has no competition.
Contention.
Contention.
Resistance.
That might be the
Yeah.
the mistranslation of the word. They said competition, and to Americans, competitions are like matches.
Yes.
I went to a competition, I got a trophy, I got third place, second place, third place, fourth place. But in Aikido, there's no places.
There should be no cues. There should be no black belts.
Yeah,
There
in
should
the
be
ideal world. But you
in
need
an
to be
ideal
organized.
world, which you can create, or you can continue to do what other people do. And when they gave me rank, I really never cared.
But then human beings need to know at what point not their status, but like where they are.
Yeah,
where
am
am
I
I
at?
in relationship to where I first started? Am I back at zero, square one?
Doesn't matter which pancake you are on
Yeah.
a stack of pancakes.
Yeah, it's not supposed to.
It's not supposed to.
It's
but
not
that's-
supposed to. But
That is
No.
definitely human nature.
Yeah.
But that's
human
why you
nature.
study meditation. That's why my mind is a whole different place. And when there's no conflict, then you can go in any place you want. If I'm facing you, and this is 1 degree right here, there's 360 degrees in the circle. Well, there's 359 that I can go to. I don't need to go where you're standing. I don't need to conflict and fight with you because I can go there and I can go there and I can do this and I can do that and I can do that. You manipulate. You manipulate their movement by just doing this. When I grab his arm, it's not like this. is I'm grabbing his arm relaxed. He's deciding where he wants me, when he wants me to touch him. Don't let uke be the one to decide.
Oh, the nage is the one who determines when and where the attack makes contact.
And when I do this and he meets me where he wants, this point of this connection is utemi. It's utemi. You're doing it not this way, but you're doing it. Okay, go right ahead and grab me.
So that is the atemi.
That's the utemi, and the feeling shouldn't be this. It's like if just like this. You should, as this is happening, you should already do this, because you're taking my motion and you're turning it already, right?
It's almost like the grip is very, very light.
Very light.
Light.
Very light.
But did you learn that in meditation?
Or did you learn that?
Or come to that realization in meditation?
It had a lot to do with meditation. It did, but it also too.
Because you no longer contend.
Well, but the other reason why is because my teachers would say soft.
Like Furuya Sensei would say soft, soft, soft.
And you think soft? What the frick is soft?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's yeah.
Marshmallows.
Yeah. Relax. Oh, okay.
Clouds.
Yeah. That's why when I grab his arm, just as I'm coming to you, you meet me. This is soft because you've already turned your palm up, right? And if you turn the palm up, and then you go this way to a Nikkyo, as you're going to the Nikkyo and I'm moving in, you're turning this arm and I'm creating Nikkyo on myself. And you become one together.
That is the I.
That is the I.
Yeah.
Almost.
That's it. It's that point when you what is it, that electrical something that sends the atom around and it explodes. That's the
collider.
The collider. That's the point.
Oh.
That's it. When it goes, and all your energy goes.
So it's almost like you have to set it up so uke does Nikkyo on themselves. You're not forcing them to do it. It's just they don't know what's happening because they're doing it to themselves.
Well, that's why when I showed the Nikkyo and I did this, because when you do this on a person's wrist, it causes his muscles in his arm to turn this way. As you're rotating this way, his arm starts to turn into a Nikkyo. And the thing is you don't want the elbow to go up. You want it to become right here, and you want to see this part of the arm, not like this, because here's the bone. But you want the soft part.
The soft part, the vulnerable part. Right here.
And right here. And then the Nikkyo. You've manipulated him into the position.
So when you're practicing with Furuya Sensei, what were some of the main corrections that he would tell the class? Because for us, he would say the same things over and over again, like deeper, slide in deeper.
He would do that
make a big circle. Yeah. Big circle, slide in deeper. Wake up, that kind of thing.
Yeah. He would say those things.
He would say the same exact things to
He would say things like that. And he would say to me, no, move in deeper. Move deeper. And he would take a sword and then a bokken and try to hit you. And he hit me.
Yeah.
But that was awakening for me. Mm-hmm. Move in, you dumb freak.
Yeah,
what
that
the hell
was
are you doing?
That was a teaching tool.
Yeah. And I moved more. And Kanai Sensei would move in to Chicago really deep. Mm-hmm. And when I'd go to his school, I'd see him do it. And he'd say, in turn, like the teacher from Japan, he was doing that at the end. He was moving in like that and moving his feet the same way and getting behind the guy's elbow and on the arm like this and doing a riminage. I sat there and I'm going like, this is just like Kanai Sensei. So I'm thinking, these people who are getting better and better, they're climbing on the same level of the old teachers who are no longer here. The next step is the Sawatomis and the what's his name with the Y.
Yamada.
No.
No.
Yamaguchi. Yamaguchi Seigo.
Oh my God! It's as soon as this happens, right? And as it's doing, he's coming up into doing an ikkyo, right here already, because you see, as you're doing this, I'm coming in and I'm bending automatically, and you have total control of my center at that time, because it works down my arm into my center, and then into my legs, and your legs will collapse because of the way you move them. To see the foot movement, to see the hand movement, but it was like his movement was like you having a piece of toast and taking soft butter and going like that, and your toast was buttered
Perfectly.
Exactly the way you want it.
Exactly the way you want it without, you're talking about like toast or like untoasted white bread that's really soft.
Yeah.
And you try to butter it and then the bread gets all mangled up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It gets ripped. But when you're doing that kind of when you do it on a person and it's like the white bread and then it just kind of rips and tears, the harmony between uki and nage is not there. But when it is and it's smooth like that with the butter and the toast, it's grabbing like this and his arm comes up to like this. Is he's going like this towards me. I'm coming in and see how he's doing this. If we're standing, he'd be moving my whole body and my center and my legs, because I'd be moving in with my legs and all he's doing is this. And that's what, so the teachers that were from Hawaii and the ones from Japan, they were doing that. And I was going, oh my freaking word. They're doing it. They're doing everything. And I do all that. But it's kind of like, Mark, you're doing something right, finally.
Well, that's very, it's reassuring when you find Aikidoists who follow the, I don't want to say, I'll say this, correct. The correct teaching, instruction to do orthodox, basic,
to do
normal Aikido. Let's say Aikido to Aikido. Not even like the particular school, just Aikido.
Yeah, you don't need to explain Aikido by trying to explain it with other words.
Yeah.
You look at it and you look at the calligraphy, this is Aikido. You don't need to add other words. Yeah. You know what this means, and that's it. That's the fulfillment of all that we're doing, But people try to, I'll do this and do that and say that. I do things like that when I feel like it's going to make the student come up.
It's like the right time.
It's the right time to encourage them.
Yeah. Or give them a tip.
You don't want to keep in the ear, and all this stuff is in their brain, and they can't process it. You have to help them understand how to process what they're doing, because it's foreign. It's foreign to them. But to you people, you've been doing it for years and years and years, and you do. And I say, just do this. I tell them like this, like flapping pancakes. Yeah. You got your spatula, you put it underneath, and you go like that. And now they do it, and I wish I never showed them, because they're flapping my pancakes. It's like, ow.
But Sensei always said the student is supposed to surpass the teacher. Mm-hmm. If the student does not surpass the teacher, then the art will just get a little bit less, then a little bit less, then a little bit less. And after several generations, you can have no skill at all. They're supposed to surpass.
They're going to. You're going to. Yeah.
Like, or at least surpass to come like this. To do with Aikido.
Yeah.
How would you say that Furuya Sensei influenced you either as an Aikidoist, as a person?
He made me understand to analyze things, to look at things. You don't look at it just like, it's this. But you looked at the movement, you analyzed things, and he would, in your mind, make you start to think more instead of just,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's it.
I
Throw
think-
him away.
Yeah.
How did he
He-
do that?
Yeah. How do you do that?
He was smart. He wasn't a
He wa-
dummy. He wasn't a dummy.
Yeah, he went to Harvard for 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, he was smart at what he said. You know, he's smart. Look at the calligraphy. Look at that stuff. Look at that stuff. Look at the... I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh my God, if I could do a 10th like that, I'd be really content. But I wouldn't be content because I continue to go. But to be able to do those strokes, that's doing a technique. That's doing an Aikido technique. It's this, and it's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's oneness. You know, it's oneness. It's you practice and do calligraphy. If you can pick up that brush and just go and it's like wow, it's not. You see the people who do it with the mops. The Zen teachers, and they go with the mop, and they go, and they're huge, and you look at it, and it's so beautiful, it's so smooth, you know. But that's, I think, what Aikido is too. It's the piece of rice paper, and then you take the brush and the ink, and then you create technique the same way. When you're doing it, you have an empty paper. You come to the dojo, everything should be empty. You can't carry crap into the dojo. You can't. It doesn't matter what it is, you know. It can be someone you love. You got problems with that. I got to go eat. I got to get home on this particular time. I got to go watch the ball game. When I went in Aikido, that was it. There was nothing else. There was nothing outside. Every dojo I went to, all that there was this right now, in that way. But you know, people have a lot of, and you have a lot of things going around in this time in life, and it's hard. It's hard to just let go. You know, in being, you know, if you're Buddhist, and my Buddhist teaching is you have to let go. You have to get rid of the ego-ness that you want to keep everything, and everything is impermanent. And impermanent, the books I gave you, I think that there's a calligraphy in there that I did, and it's on a piece of black cardboard, and it says impermanence. I would keep writing impermanence and impermanence and impermanence, so that your mind, that even what they learned during this seminar, it's impermanent. Every time you do the technique and you throw, then it's gone. And if you cling to it, it's not valid. Uno would say, do it, and then let it go. And he said, if you're tired and you can't make it and you're so tired, that's the best time to come.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to use strength. You know, I mean, those things are pearls of wisdom.
Yeah.
What Furuya would say was a pearl of wisdom, and he'd give it to you, and people will take it in, and then they go, because they don't.
They don't understand it.
No.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that he would say that I wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
I would just gotta take it, stick it in my little mind palace, and one day, like, my body and mind would be like, that's it. And then you come through this thing that, oh, I'm so glad I didn't forget about that little thing that I thought was kind of useless, you know?
Yeah. That's enlightenment.
Yeah.
That's your enlightenment. Enlightenment doesn't need to be, it's little flicks.
But Sensei never talked about in those classes enlightenment, things like that, did he? Like really high concept, high concept things in class, in Aikido class, not like when you guys were eating hamburgers or pizza or whatever.
Okay, that's a different thing.
Yeah, you know, like when you guys had your own personal time.
Yeah.
You know, you could devote your time in class, group class.
He would say things to try to like you know, let it go in your mind, clean your mind. When you're doing it, don't get caught up in it. I'm attacking you with a sword. Well, you're gonna freaking get caught up in it, a boken.
Yeah.
because your head isn't as hard as that wood. And he was so good with it, he could hit you and you'd be down, knocked out, and you didn't even know what happened. But he would say, okay, when I have my shinai and I hit you and you don't move, don't get caught up in it. Let it go. And then you're going to try again. That to me is what you're asking, is he's leading them that way. And it's on an esoteric, plane, but it's on a simple plane where you can communicate with someone who is still down here and you're up here. You can't put your knowledge that you have up here into someone down there because they're going to explode.
Yeah, they can't comprehend the meaning of what you're saying.
Yeah, so you don't say, like sometimes I'll talk to my students and talk about the Hot Sutra and give them a book and say, read this. And the next day they give it back. I don't know what the hell this means. No. Yeah. And I said, you got to really understand that. That's not being attached to anything, and that anything that is really nothing, because everything is in a state of flux. And your technique is the same thing. Don't get caught up in it. It's in a state of flux. You don't want to backpedal. You want to continue with the flow of the water. You want to move with it. You don't want to look behind and see all the trash that you dumped in the river. You want to see what's up here. You want to go to enlightenment. You want to go this way. I tell people, don't bother with enlightenment. It's a pain in the butt, because enlightenment, you learn everything about everyone, about everything. You become enlightened to everything. And everyone comes around because they want your wisdom. And you don't have a minute's silence. The Buddha never had a minute's silence. He always had hundreds of people, hundreds of monks, hundreds of people. And if you read the Pali Canon at the beginning, it says the Buddha was at Vulture Peak with 100 light beings that came from the sky, came down to listen to him talk, and about all these Ararats that were there, and all the nuns that were there, and all the people, and all different varieties of people that came there to listen to him, and they would dump every problem at his feet. And he would give them, if you read the sutras, he gave them like perfect answers. What is it? The seed. It's I don't know, the sesame seed or the something seed. And the woman went to the Lord Buddha and brought her baby. She wanted him to make this baby alive.
I went to Buddhist Sunday school too.
Yeah.
And
I
all
never
this stuff
did.
I don't remember.
And there's things I remember, and I'm like, why am I? It must have been past life.
Yeah.
No, that's a story from Vipassana.
Yeah. And it was the seed, the something seed, and the Buddha said, you need to find this particular seed from a house where no one has died. And she ran all around the village asking, and then she'd get the seed, and she'd say, oh, did anyone die? Oh, yeah, my mother died last week. Go to another one, oh, yeah, my son died a week ago. And never found the house that no one had died. Mm-hmm. And she finally understood the meaning of everything comes to an end. And then she went to the Ganges and had, the fire lit for the child and to move on. And then she went back to the Buddha and became a nun and was a nun with him forever after that. He gave simple things. It's not, you're going to tell your students something in Aikido and do this. It's not boom.
Yeah.
It's boom. And that psst has a lot of meaning. Even when you as teachers look and they see, and your eyes, the way you look, also tell something. But people need to be aware. You know, the students have to be more aware. They're really busy thinking about me and my Aikido, and I want to do it right.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make sure that Sensei's happy and this and that. But I tell people, you know, are you happy? It is, you know, making Sensei happy is a good thing, but to make you happy and make you do something, do it the way it should be done, is automatically going to make Sensei happy. Because you're following what they're saying, and you're doing it, and you're correcting yourself. You know.
Like, I'm gonna go back to that story about the seed and that woman.
Yeah.
So the comparison to an Aikido student is you give them this seed, and they search through all these things. Essentially, they're doing the work to find their own answer.
Yeah.
Then they come to their own answer. And go, thank you, Sensei, for that teaching.
Yeah.
Whereas before they like, seed, like, what is this?
But in the modern, they go, "What the hell was that? Screw you! I'm out
Screw
of
this
here."
seed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they don't want to do the work. They take the seed and they don't want to go to.
It's not that they don't want to
house.
do the work; they didn't learn the value of the work.
Exactly.
yeah.
You're right.
So I would imagine it's the teacher who teaches them the value of work somehow,
Yeah.
some way.
You
And
give
then-
them crumbs.
Yeah.
You don't put them in a buffet
Yeah.
and you just let them eat.
Yeah.
You feed them crumbs.
Crumbs.
And you want to make sure that when you feed them a crumb, there's another crumb that's going to fit right in the other. You don't give them things and they have no idea of how to put it together.
Like random tips, tricks, and things like that. You want to give them.
You want to give them something
Something
that's
that-
the domino dink
Yes,
that hits the
yeah.
next one dink that hits the next, and it's that flow of consciousness, that flow of understanding. It's not okay. Here it goes like this, and the next one goes like this.
But then Sensei had that understanding of to give the right crumb to tip over the right domino to create this cause and effect.
Wow.
And that's the not the problem. That's the not the conundrum. I guess that's a conundrum all teachers have, that you just can't give. You have to give the right crumb. You can't give just
Or that you must. It is really back to you developing yourself to be a better teacher.
yes.
Yes.
Like you have to be. Yeah, you have to train. You have to be. You yourself have to be well trained and well versed.
Yeah.
If you're just some guy who just has a bunch of information from all over the place, you may give the wrong crumb to the student. They'll be like, "Oh, I'm gonna turn my foot out to the right or whatever." You know, they do that, and
Right.
it doesn't really.
Well,
The domino just falls down.
But since he talked about that, he said that you want to give them the perfect correction, the perfect one correction,
Yeah.
which changes everything.
Yeah.
Not 10 corrections which change 10 things. The
Yeah.
one correction that's so perfect, it changes everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. One grain
Like
of sand.
yeah,
can
like
bring
an
down the
yes,
mountain.
that's right.
What would you like to impart upon people until the next time we meet and talk?
I see. Don't get down on yourself when you're practicing. That's the worst thing, because you can never leave yourself. And if you create yourself inside of you, oh, I didn't know this right. I didn't know that right. And please wash that away. Sweep it away. Don't get down on yourself when you don't do it right. I mean, when you don't do it right, that's the time that's telling you that you have to stop and look at it. You have to work at that. You know, don't get so frustrated that you slam the door and walk away, you know, because that's the point. That's your ego. And that's the dukkha, the suffering, you know, that you have to let go of. You come here and you're working with people, and I came here and worked with all the people. And that was, for me, it was a loving feeling. There was a nice energy. Some dojos I went in, I've gone, yeah. And the first thing they do is they want to kill you. And I go, okay, because I know you can try to kill me, but I've already killed you 10 times over. So it doesn't matter. Go ahead, do your best. But the one, if you're killing yourself, it's no good. You know, you just keep, and where we are and what we're doing is really nothing. So don't get caught up in it because there's always something else coming. There's always something, you know.
Well, I think that's a good place to stop.
We can go on for another 3 hours.
We very much can go on.
We could.
You're right.
You know, and I really appreciate you coming and sharing your knowledge and history and helping us find Furuya Sensei's first dojo.
Yeah, that was so awesome. That was like...
You could tell both of you were like...
Yeah, I was...
You were
I don't know. I was kind of in awe for some reason. I don't know why.
So, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And don't forget to like or subscribe. Thank you
very much.
Bye.